Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up. And thank you for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. Today's movie review will be on comedy horror Bad Milo.
It's just you and me, buddy. It's just you and me.
Shout out to the Monster Fam and everybody else who just watched this movie with us in the Mutant Theater in the Discord chat room. Special shout out to Frank and Chris who organized the multiple weekly screenings. So if you ever want to watch any horror movies or TV shows with some fellow horror fans, go ahead and check out the link in my description for the Monster Fam schedule. I typically pop in from time to time. For this month's Saturday afternoon double feature screening, I was asked to pick 2 movies to watch, and I picked The Machinist and Bad Milo. I've been a fan of The Machinist since it came out. I have watched that movie so many times, and Bad Milo I watched for the first time a few years ago and instantly fell in love with this hidden gem. In 2013, it premiered at South by Southwest in March and was released to VOD in August and had a limited release in October. Brothers Mark and Jay Duplass became executive producers on the project when Jacob showed Mark the script, hoping that he would agree to play the lead in the film. But Mark was unsure of where he wanted to go in his acting career, so he turned the role down, but offered to be the executive producer. Magnet Releasing is the distributor of the film, and they distribute a lot of foreign and genre films. Some of the films that I've enjoyed from them have been the VHS movies, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and Splinter. Bad Milo stars Ken Marino and Gillian Jacobs, who have an all-star supporting cast that includes Patrick Warburton, Mary Kay Place, Kumail Nanjiani, and Peter Stormare. Duncan, played by Ken, is under a lot of pressure with work and the idea of being a father, which causes his stress to manifest itself into a butt demon who he names Milo. After giving butt birth to his demon, it attacks and kills anyone who causes Duncan stress, and crawls back up his butt when he's done. Killing it would essentially kill him, so he must instead bond with it and try to keep it under control. This little monster is absolutely the highlight of this movie. It's the cutest, ugliest thing I've ever seen. It was a practical that was controlled by a puppeteer that would get edited out of the shot in post-production. The only thing digital about the puppet was its eye blink. This little thing was always so wet and slimy, but just adorable at the same time. It's definitely got a resemblance to Baby from the TV show Dinosaurs, with a touch of E.T. and Gizmo. When you read the description for this movie, it's really easy to be turned off and dismiss it as some silly, gross movie not worth your time. But it's actually an endearing story about both father and son and starting a new family, featuring a little butt devil who feeds on human flesh. The actors weren't silly or over the top, despite how silly and over the top this premise is. We luckily don't get a poop fest or inside out butts or anything like that. If there was, I wouldn't be recommending this movie. I'm not a fan of vomit and poop gore. It's totally not my thing. This film was able to carefully balance a serious tone with this ridiculous idea of an id becoming personified into a man-eating little monster that just crawls back up its owner's butt once it's done with its business. I immediately got Office Space vibes as well as Clock Watchers. We got that work atmosphere with the cubicles, crappy bosses, and gray walls. Everyone there dreads being there every day, and all of the nice guys get stepped on. The director was inspired by Shaun of the Dead's approach to comedy horror, and y'all already know Shaun of the Dead is one of my favorites. That movie also manages to present a serious tone, giving us a sense of realism, which makes us feel for the characters even though everything happening around them is completely outlandish and over the top. Even though Tusk and The Human Centipede aren't comedy horror films, they still have this kind of same serious delivery with this undertone of humor that make what's happening on screen, the impossible that we're watching on screen, seem a little bit more possible because of how grounded in reality it feels. Jacob really hit a gold mine with this cast. Each and every character has their moment in the film, no matter how big or small their roles were. Despite there being a full and completed script, Jacob would encourage the actors to improvise a lot of their lines. Another thing that really brought this unique film to life was the soundtrack. The big orchestral music really made this a grand adventure and accented all of the humor and really helped to build the suspense. The music choice could have very easily cheesed this up too much or made it fall completely flat. It's too bad that Ted Masur hasn't done much more work after this film. This movie reminds us to slow down, reevaluate, and adjust what we need to in our lives to better manage our stress. Otherwise, it could lead to unhealthy consequences. Adjustments could mean reaching out to a long-lost relative, telling your partner how you feel about something, standing up to your boss, or just finding a new job altogether. Alright, so this part of the video is going to be just a little bit spoily, so if you want zero spoilers, go ahead and pause now. So when Duncan is told by his therapist that he can't kill Milo, but instead has to bond with it in order to keep it from killing the people who are stressing Duncan out, he is essentially being told to face his stress and anxiety head on, instead of continuing to ignore it. More times than not, there'll be one of two outcomes. It wasn't as bad as you thought, or it's tough at first but worth it in the end regardless of the outcome. This movie knows it's ridiculous, and it utilizes its background instead of overusing its actors to draw attention to it, because we do have some really goofy characters, but it's still just a little bit restrained. For instance, in Duncan's bathroom office, there is still blood on the walls from when Milo killed his QB, and there's a juice and coffee commercial in the background when Sarah is telling Duncan that she's pregnant and he's having some stomach cramps. These commercials give the audience an opportunity to sort of visually show what Duncan is feeling with his stomach cramps. Also, it calls itself out in moments where you might have criticized the film, but they turn around and say the same thing you just said. For example, when Duncan's therapist told him to let Milo go back up his butt, Duncan replies with the obvious, "It's too big." As far as negatives go for this film, there wasn't too much horror. It was definitely a more comedy heavy and story driven film, but the horror that we do see is a lot of fun, and we do get our little Milo. And the cinematography was a bit distracting at times, especially with scenes that were lit with fluorescent lighting. But other than that, I don't have too much else to say as far as negatives go for this one, and so with that, I will give Bad Milo 4 rainbow skulls out of 5. And you can find this one on HBO Max, Amazon Prime, Hulu Premium, Apple TV, and YouTube. Well, thank you again for joining me today, fellow Stardust. I appreciate you being here with me. If you would like access to regular exclusive content, I'll leave a link down below for my Patreon page. And I'll be back next week with more videos. So, if you haven't already, go ahead and hop on the Rainbow Fright Freight Train and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. I hope I see you next time. Peace.